Welcome back, friends. This is Solomon Jagwe. I'm back with another quick insight and tutorial. Today, we're going to be talking about DAZ Studio and the DAZ bridges to different programs. There's a major update, and as you can see, they have DAZ to Maya, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, Blender, Unity, and Unreal. And so, a number of you have had some issues with this particular installation, whereby you said some textures were not showing up. So I'm going to walk you through. There's a new way that they've implemented to install this plugin, so you don't have to deal with all that. Okay. And the reason I'm actually following up on this is back in about 2 years ago, I created this tutorial where it does to Blender Bridge. But since then, Blender itself has matured. And right now we're using Blender 3.3.0. That's the one that I have installed right now. So actually, if you go over here, and you can see usually when it's installed, it's on the shelf right here, but it's not there. And even when you go to edit, preferences, and add-ons and search for DAZ, there's nothing there just yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and install. First of all, make sure you have Blender installed, maybe using Blender 3.3. Have it installed. Also, make sure that you have DAZ Studio installed. Okay, so today as a case study, I'm going to be using this character called Collar in this space suit, astronaut suit. And if I switch over to NVIDIA Iray real quick, we can take a look at how beautiful these models are. So the idea is that using DAZ Studio, right, you could have all these beautiful models in your library, but you're just using them inside of DAZ. If you wanted to take them to Blender, create an environment around them, render using Eevee or Cycles, you can do that using these bridges. And actually, when you go to the page itself, bridges for DAZ software, if you scroll all the way down, you can see the process. I mean, they just give you a highlight of what you can do with this, and it just enables you to take all those models that you have and send them to Blender. Now, there is a caveat to that, because some models, for example, for the Unreal Engine, there are some that are not supported. So just be careful as you're shopping that you narrow it down. Like if you go to shop over here, you narrow it down to go to figure, and then go to the software, and then narrow it down to the particular program that you're going to be using. So for example, we're using Blender, so just switch over to Blender. Okay, so that and you can see there's 1735 items that are compatible with Blender. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go back over here. This is what we're looking at, and this is the model that we're dealing with today. It looks beautiful. This particular character actually is from this collection of models called for Collar, and I was actually honored by DAZ 3D to be able to participate in the creation of these Afrocentric models. So if you're looking for like Afrocentric sci-fi kind of material, slowly but surely it's filling out, and that you can start with that one. So go ahead and check it out. I'll put this link in the description of the video so that you can take a look as well. All right, so we're gonna turn off Iray, just go to smooth shaded, and make sure over here that the model is selected. All right, and this is the quick way that they've implemented. So what you do is you go to File over here, go to Send, and then choose Send to Blender. Okay, this is very important. It's in my previous tutorial, it was working differently, and as you can see, if you don't have it installed, if you drop down, you're gonna see the type of Blender model that is going to be detected, right? So make sure you select the one that you have. Select I'm using Blender 3.3, which is right here. So I'm going to make sure I close Blender, and then make sure it's selected, and then click on Install Plugin, right? Okay, so it says Blender plugin successfully installed, and they show you the Updater, Roaming, Blender Foundation, Blender, and 3 scripts add-ons. Before you had to search for that particular link. Now you don't have to do that. Okay, and actually, if I go to that particular path, you can see that it has just installed it right now, right? So let's go ahead and fire up Blender. So before I fire up Blender, let me go ahead and actually accept to send this. I'm gonna export the morphs, big subdivisions, advanced. So just use these default settings as you see them now, but make sure that at least you have baked subdivisions and export morphs in checked. If you want to do some facial animation, click on choose morphs over here, and you can actually include the AR kit. So by default, these are what's included. If you click on this one, it's going to add a few more, and click on accept and go ahead and accept. Again, that interface has also changed from previous versions. So back in when I did the tutorial 2 years ago, it was the Blender version was different from what we have now. So just go ahead and allow this to go through. Depending on the speed of your computer, this might take a long time or it might just go real quick. But because we don't have animation on the character, it might go fairly quickly. Right now I'm using this system that I'm working with. It has a 3090 card. It's a Threadripper. I was blessed by the company Puget Systems. So if again, I will include the link in the description should you want to see like the specs of that I'm using to be able to get the same results. You can look at that. So that's done. It didn't even take, it's just a couple minutes, I think. Click OK. And that's the power of this machine. So hopefully your machine, depending on the speed that you have, you can at least you get a sense of how fast it should go if you have a fairly good system. So the model has been sent. So we need to go to Blender. Let's start Blender over here. And Blender 3.3. If you go to the shelf over here, you can see that it's there. And the reason why is if you don't see it there, make sure you go to Edit, Preferences over here, go to Add-ons, type DAZ, and make sure you enable import export DAZ to Blender. Make sure that is checked, and when it's checked, then it will show up on this shelf right here. So right now, let's just delete this box. We don't need that. And had I exported an environment, then you would be able to import that as well. But right now, we just want to import the character. So click on Import New Genesis Model, and click on this blue area, Import New Genesis Figure. And again, depending on the speed of your machine, this might take significantly longer than what you see now. But 95, it's done. That's the power of this. I mean, the value of having a fairly good system when you're working with DAZ Studio and also Blender when you're using Eevee and Recycles especially. All right, so a number of you have said that when the character is imported, you don't see the shaders. But that's only because if you go to over here and click on this particular icon, it's going to go through and process the textures. You got to give it time, because if you don't, it will seem like the textures didn't come through, but they really did. They came through, and as you can see, they're showing up. Okay, and it's very important, guys, to check to see what version of the DAZ to Blender bridge that you've installed. The way to verify, again, go back to the preferences over here and add-ons, then type DAZ up at the top, and then drop down, and you can see the version is 2022.2.17.40. That is the most recent update, and that's what we're talking about here, is that there was a major update to these plugins, the bridges, and that's why we're able to do this. So the textures are coming in properly. Now, if you look over here, right now we're using Eevee. Actually, no, not Eevee. This is just the viewport. But if we click over here to the shader display, it switches over to Cycles or Eevee, depending on which one you have by default. So this is the way to find out, of course, as any of you guys know, is to go over to here and select check which render engine has been selected. If you go to Eevee, it's gonna, that's what it looks like. Again, the textures are they're showing through properly. And actually, if I zoom in real close, you can see they look really nice. So those details are retained, right? So now, I mean, the issue we see now is the helmet is not showing properly. So that helmet shader is again, it brings in like an Uber Iray shader, but Cycles and Eevee don't recognize the particular material or shader that has been applied to the class. So it does show it here, but if you want to see it, by the way, if you see all these controls, if you want to hide the controls, simply go to the DAS figure over here, Genesis, and turn them off right there so they're not in the way. Okay, so now if we expand this, you can look for the helmet shape itself and we can turn it off. And in there, you're going to see our character looking really, really good. Okay. If you want to replicate some of like the glowing part of it, you would need to convert this material to an emissive material. And so the way you do that, simply go to the shape over here for the Genesis body. Let's go down a little bit. Okay, eyes shape. This is because these are shells that have been added. They're not the typical eyes that you see. So if you want to change the eyes to make them glow, we need to expand that. And if I scale this a little bit, you can see there are 17 textures or shaders in there. If you expand that down, we're going to look for the iris. And that's going to be, where's the iris? Over here. So double click on that. And let's zoom in. So that's the iris. So by default, it's going to be an Iray Uber shader, but that's not what we want. So if we go to shading over here, let's give it a second. You can see the nodes for the the material that is on there. So this material right here is the one that is cutting out the shader for the eyes. So we can actually zoom in right there. And if you want, we can also switch to Cycles and the shading part so we can actually see the result. So what I do, because I know, you can find this texture, but I'm gonna just go ahead and copy it. Okay, and so we have the iris selected. Let's go back. I lost it. All right, where are you? Character over here. The shell, eyes, shell. Let me expand this a little bit more. Expand that. And let's go back to the irises. Irises 2. This one, double click on that. All right, so we're gonna change this from an Iray Uber shader under the surface to an emission or emissive material. All right, so as you can see right now, if we change the color, you can make it glow, but something is missing. We're missing that shell, like that sci-fi looking shell that looks really cool. So if you go over here, instead of the color itself, you can click over here and change this to a texture. So you go to texture and then you want to use image texture, and you can drop down as well over here and look through. And this particular project or this scene that was imported has a lot of shaders. So my shortcut is simply you can search for it, but you can also come over here and paste, because I'd copied it earlier on. Okay, that's a quicker way. And then we can delete this part right there. We don't need that. Okay, so if I connected this right now, it's not going to give us a color, right? So regardless, the color is, you want to be able to adjust the tint of this glowing. So you can increase the strength over here, but you're not getting that nice blue, metallic blue, it's glowing thing. So what you do, let's just remove that and drag this out here. And we're going to look for hue and saturation. Let's go hue and saturation value. So diffuse hue and saturation value over here. And let's add that. And then we're going to connect this to there. All right. Now we have access to the color. So I can go here and change the color. And we get that nice glowing effect over there. So, and If I zoom out just a tiny bit, and now we can increase that strength as much as we want so that you can start seeing the light. Like, ooh, I'm a cyborg. Crank it up as far as you want. And also under cycles, I'm gonna choose a GPU. I mean, after all, this machine has a 3090 card. We might as well use it, and we'll go to supported. All right, so we get a little bit faster render over there. Okay, so guys, that's how you add the nice, emissive light to the glowing of the eyes. And the fact that you can do that means that if we go to our helmet again, because we want to have that helmet back, let's go bring it back. And we're going to go to the glass material over here. Let's double click on the glass. And it's also going to be an Uber shader. It doesn't have a texture on it, so we can definitely change this to glass if you want. But if you want to change the opacity, just scroll down and adjust the cutout over here, over there. And then you can also do a little bit of a tinting if you want. So now you have the helmet showing nicely with a transparency over there. All right, now if we want to add some glow into the helmet itself, like some lights that are coming out from under here, so we'll go to the helmet. It has a light here, so let's double click on that. And again, because it has no texture per se, let me make sure, yeah, there's no texture, so we can convert this to an emissive light as well. And we can adjust the color to be maybe blue if you want, or maybe green, make you happy. And then increase the brightness. Cool. Look at that. Okay. And I think it has another light in here, I believe. So if you want to add a little bit of light into the character side, there's a light too, and then there's, I think, inner light over here. And again, if it has no texture, we are free to change this to an emissive light instead of an Uber shader. Let's go to emission and change the color to maybe a nice blue as well, and increase the power, and you can see it's showing up over here. So as you can see, guys, the textures are working. You can adjust the light, improve on the character as you go through. And let's go to the environment itself. Maybe we can turn down the background a little bit so we can see this better. And there you go. So if there are any other lights on here on the suit itself, you can go through and see if there are any lights that we can add. I see lights over here. Again, no texture. We can definitely, let's see, make sure you double click on that. Go to array, emission, color, blue, over there, increase the power, and you can see showing through nicely. Yes. There any other lights? Let's see, plastic. All right, doesn't seem like there's another light. All right, but for the most part, guys, that is the workflow. Once you have the model over here in Blender, you can definitely work on improving it and make it look great. like glowing. So thank you so much again for joining me, guys. Again, I am updating this tutorial to show how it's much better now, much easier to send your character to Blender. They've updated the installation itself, and you can install it just right inside of DAZ Studio, and I'm using DAZ Studio 4.2 Zero Pro and go to Daz to Blender and then install the version of Blender that you want. All right. And same thing applies if you want to send to like Unreal Engine or 3ds Max. You'll be able to do that the same way in Maya. So thank you so much again for joining me today. Again, if you are new to my channel, do please spare a minute to subscribe over here. Hit that subscription button and hit the notification bell so you're alerted when I post new videos. Thank you so much to my patrons. Please consider becoming a patron to support me so I can continue creating fun tutorials to help you on your journey to creating short stories. Dare to dream big as always, guys. Never ever give up on your dream. Much love, and I'm praying for you. Thank you for helping me to get to 17,600. Let's go to 18,000 all the way to 100,000. Oh my gosh, that would be so cool. All right, I'm gonna continue to create new tutorials. Anytime that I find something cool that I feel like is going to be helpful to the indie filmmaking community, I'll do my best to share. And guys, as always, take advantage of these tools and these models to tell your stories. If you have like a script, don't let it sit on your brain or in a folder somewhere. Bring it to life with some of these characters. They are very affordable. Think about that. Very affordable. So go ahead and give it a try. And then maybe once you get funding, you can then hire a whole team of modelers and riggers and animators. But Daz Studio and Daz 3D Marketplace is a good way to start. And the bridges make it very easy for you to transfer these models to programs like Blender. And then you are able to light them, add textures, improve the textures and whatever you need. So thank you so much again. See you next time with another tutorial. Bye for now.